Welcome everyone to today's podcast. My name is Paul. I'm a happy member of Cocaine Anonymous. I'm here with a friend of mine, Joe D. Would you like to say hello?
Hi, I'm Joe and I'm an addict.
And thanks so much for tuning in for this podcast today. So we're all about the steps, the program, the Fellowship of Cocaine Anonymous. We're here to carry a message of hope, faith and courage that any addict can quit using drugs, lose the desire to use and find a new way to live. We have a lot of podcasts. If you've just landed on this podcast on YouTube or elsewhere, please check out the other ones. There's one on each of the steps. There's one on an entire psychic change, the ABCs of recovery, the spiritual malady, problem and solution. We've got one on what is sponsorship, another one, am I ready to become a sponsor, and another one, how do I sponsor? So there's lots and lots of information there, so please feel free to distribute them. So without further ado, I'm very blessed that Jo has agreed to come along today to share her story of experience, strength and hope with us around recovery. So without further ado, I'm just going to hand the floor over to you.
Thank you very much, Paul. I will start off with the madness, but I would rather talk about the recovery, so I'm not going to talk too much about the madness. But I was born into a family where I had a dad as a vicar and a mum as a teacher, or she was training to be a teacher up until I was 9 and then became a teacher. The problem is, being a vicar's daughter and being the only vicar's daughter within a town meant that I had problems with having to wear dresses, whereas I was not a girly girl whatsoever, and having to put myself in the front of like crowds and give bouquets of flowers to the mayor's wife and things like that. And to me, this was incredibly crippling. I came across as this very confident little girl, whereas actually I was terrified inside, and nobody noticed that was how I felt. I didn't feel I fitted in. But going to the fact of my drink and drug problem, I remember at the age of 5, my mum used to give me and my brother a little thimbleful of sherry every Sunday. And we used to look forward to this insofar as I remembered having the drink and tasting it, and it didn't taste that nice, but the feeling of it, the glow in my face, the warmth it can, went through my body, was like, wow, this is amazing. And every Sunday this would happen. And it's strange because me and my brother both had this, but my brother never went down the same path I did. So I do believe there is some sort of genetic change within the brain. I believe it's inbred to a certain extent. And my mum did go through trauma when she was pregnant with me. So whether that was part of it, I do not know. Her dad died in the April and I was born in the November. So, that was the start of it as such. Then eventually, by the time I was 9, I decided, and this is part of my story, I started self-harming. It was very small to start with, but in my life, that became a control thing. And it went on up until I was 45. So from the age of 9 to the age of 45, self-harm came upon me as well. And then at 11, I took an overdose in front of my mum of, it was quiet peace tablets, which were herbal tablets which she freaked out about, because she was like, oh my goodness, my daughter is taking an overdose. What do I do? And I mean, I put my family through a lot of things. And then at 13, I was drinking and I was running away. And I remember at one stage sitting in the graveyard from our churchyard, watching the police going in and out of my parents' house. And that was just early life. And, the great escape was, I would get, in the middle of the night when my mum and dad were sleeping, I'd get out the window and crawl along the roof, which, to be honest, would probably not hold an adult because it was rackety. Then get on the garage roof, which is a double garage, then get on the oil tanker, then get on the water butt, and then get down. And that's how I used to escape in the night, and then go and see people and then have more drink. And then, so my parents wouldn't know, I would then do the same thing to get back into the house. And I did this with friends as well, and they used to come over. And it was just reckless, I'd lie in the middle of the road because I thought it would be funny, because that was the way it was with, with drink. I was erratic. And, if I fast forward a few years, I turned 19 and I fell pregnant with my first son. And I was living with my boyfriend at the time, and it was a very toxic relationship. He used to beat me up. And, it wasn't his fault, insofar as, it wasn't his fault that I was drinking, because that was just me. It was chaotic in the house. And, I decided it was either now me or my son, because the overdosing was still happening, but I was ending up being more and more horrendous, and overdosing on pills and anything. I was a risk taker, and I had to make that decision. It's me or my son, and my son came before anything else. So for 8 to 9 years, I stopped drinking. I did have the odd time where I drank, and I would drink to oblivion, because before that I would drink to blackout. It wasn't just drinking as a normal, teenager would, insofar as they do a bit of rebellion. It was really drinking to blackout, drinking to the extent I was sick all the time. I was on Carlsberg Special Brew at the age of 16, and I would be able to drink about 4 cans before I'd drink, before I would fall over. And I tried, ecstasy, and I would try crack, and I would try anything that was put in my path. I would try, I didn't care. And at the age of 19, like I said, I chose my son. And for 9 years, it was relatively quiet. And then I started my nurse training. And at last, I thought I'd arrived. I'd arrived at something that actually I wanted to be, something that was for me, that I could then, delve in and give back to my family. I was married at this time. I had 3 more children, or 3 children altogether, 3 boys. And I then found out I was pregnant with my daughter, and it crumbled my world. And I had prenatal and postnatal depression, which caused me, well, it didn't cause me, I chose to drink on this. And also I was on, before I was pregnant, I was on tramadol and dihydrocodeine due to the pain of having gallstones. So I liked the feeling of having, the opiates within me. And because I was pregnant, they said, well, you can take pethidine, but we may have to, taper the baby off it. And I was like, okay. So I dabbled in the pethidine. I did not take it as doctor's orders was, prescribed. I just took it when I felt like I just needed to have that time out and zone out. and with a bottle of gin usually. And, you know, I'd hide the gin bottles into, because it was mostly drink at this stage, you know, into laundry baskets underneath the stairs in different places, so my husband wouldn't get to know. And also because I'd worked in a off license at one stage in my life, I knew the alcoholic. So rather than be one of those people that, oh, well, she's an alcoholic, we know that because she comes in every day, I would drive miles away to go and get a bottle of gin, and then go somewhere else for a bottle of gin, and then go somewhere else for a bottle of gin. So I would do a 20-mile around trip to get my bottles of gin, basically. And I'd end up, you know, I ended up taking this massive overdose, ended up in hospital, phoned my husband and said, I can go home. Sorry.
You're right.
Yeah, I just got to go. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Carry on.
Yeah. So that was my son. But yeah, I had to choose my son. I chose my son. That was it. Then my daughter came and I drank. And then when I got to drinking, and I woke up in the hospital bed. And when I woke up in the hospital bed, I was told I couldn't go home, otherwise my kids would be taken into care. And that meant my 9-year-old to my 8-month-old would be taken into care. And I was like, I'm not having that. And I then had to make that decision, and I was homeless. I was put into bed and breakfasts, which didn't work because I was drinking and taking overdoses again. And they would find me and then they would take me away. And then within 2 weeks, I was told I was evicted and I had to go to another bed and breakfast, which was horrible. I didn't know anybody around. And then I ended up in another bed and breakfast where there was heroin galore. And then I went into a hostel eventually, where somebody used to come around that did heroin, and we drove to Bath at the time to get some crack, to get some heroin, and to get some ecstasy tablets from somewhere else. Plus we had the drink. So we were doing all this, and it was just like all the time I was doing something. But then I would walk, and I was like the jaywalker. I would walk on the motorway, on the M4 motorway, which is quite a busy motorway. It's the main motorway from Bristol to London. And you know, I would just stop. I would end up stopping traffic because the police would end up getting involved, and then I'd be taken to the police cell. Then I would be examined by a psychiatrist, and he says, well, you're drunk, so that's it. And then I'd spend the night in the cell, and then I'd go home. And that was almost like going on every single every week, if not more than once a week. And, you know, it was all like this until I ended up in hospital. And I ended up in hospital for 5 years. So I was a dry drunk. Well, actually, for the first year, I wasn't a dry drunk because I could get out of the hospital and drink and take stuff. And I got my husband to wee in a bottle. So when I took the Coke, I was able to give a specimen to the nurses that was clear. And yeah, it didn't, you know, I had all these ideas of how to get around it, and I was cunning and I was lying, and I was a nice person on the outside, but inside I was missing something, and I was trying to get that through the drugs and the drink, and you know, I wasn't getting it. So, you know, 5 years I ended up in hospital, and I had to be a dry drunk then. And then I came out, and then it was the legal highs, which are now illegal. So I was on those all the time. And then it was like I got to cocaine, you know, and cocaine came the massive thing that I would get to. And then I was being used. I'd been raped 3 times at this stage. And, you know, I was getting into relationships that I didn't need to be in. Well, it wasn't even a relationship, it was one night stands, because I just didn't care about myself. It was like, it was more, I wanted the coke. And then I got to the stage where actually this isn't doing anything for me anymore. You know, this life is not doing anything, and I just wanted to end it. I just got to the stage where I wanted to die, and really, really wanted to die. And I phoned up something called Frank, and Frank is, in this country, a drug and alcohol place where you can phone to get help. And I phoned them and said, look, I think I've got a problem with cocaine. I didn't think I had a problem with my thinking. I thought it was cocaine, you know, because I'd gone to the psychiatrist and had DBT, which is dialective behavior therapy, which is derived from CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy. And I thought I understood my emotions a bit better, but I didn't. And yeah, from Frank, they put me on to CA, and I phoned the CA hotline and was given a responder who then phoned me and said to me, well, I'll take you to a CA group tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And then, of course, through the night, I was like, oh, I'm going to a CA meeting. I'm going to a CA meeting. What's it going to be like? You know, is it going to be people in the circle going, my name is James and I'm an alcoholic and I'm an addict and I'm this and I'm that, you know, and have to talk? And I was like petrified. But I went in and there was a main share happening, which is the best thing that could have happened. And I wanted what she had. I was like, how can I actually, you know, get what she had without working for it, you know, without going through these steps? Because I could not understand how these 12 steps could work and stop me from drinking and drugging and doing things that were, you know, like self-harming and all that sort of stuff. And I gave it a thought. And I mean, you know, that was in 2017. And in 2017, I first came into CA rooms. I'd been into an AA room in 2003 and came straight out of it and thought, this is not for me. And, you know, 2017, I was willing, but I wasn't willing enough. But I still went, and I went every week to, well, 2 times or 3 times a week to a CA meeting. And, you know, I eventually got a sponsor, and my sponsor started taking me through the book. And then we were hitting, sort of getting to the stage of step 4, but we were so slow. And I was like, I just want to get it done with. You know, it wasn't even like I cared. It was more like, I just want to get it done with and over with and all that sort of stuff, you know. Looked at step 4 and thought, I can give you all my you know, personal defects, because I'm stupid, I'm pathetic, I hate myself. You know, it's all self-pity and horrible, you know, I'm horrible. So why bother doing it with somebody else? And I was like, yeah, and I can do that. And if I give it to somebody else and tell somebody else, they'll see it too. And when they see it, they won't want to know me. And, you know, it was like that. And I changed sponsors and ended up in a hospital on and off, on and off, on and off, still at this stage. And she had to let me go. She says, I'm letting you go in love. She says, but I feel that we're not getting anywhere. And I was on my step 4 at the time. And I just cried. And I felt like she hated me, and that was that. And it was all done with. And then I tried phoning somebody else and asked if they would take me on, and they couldn't, because they had enough sponsors. And so I went back to my original sponsor, and we went through the book, and then her nan died just as I got to step 4. And so she had to take time out because obviously she had issues because of her nan, and she was very close to her nan, and you know, she was unable to emotionally stay with me. So I went on to somebody else who took me through the steps and got me to step 4 and then relapsed. And I was like, am I ever, I mean, because I'd written out my step 4 at this stage. And I was like, am I ever going to finish my step 4? Am I ever going to be able to get to step 5? And I rang somebody in tears, and I was like, just help me. You know, everybody is leaving me at step 4, and, you know, it's not always their fault, but things are happening. And it's like, I just cried. And she goes, oh, what's so wrong? And I was like, I told her, you know, everybody's leaving me at step 4. You know, the person that was taking me through, who she knew, had relapsed. And she was like, I tell you what, I'll take you through the rest of it. So she took me through the rest of it, but it felt disjointed because I hadn't started the book with her. I just finished the book with her. And then she went through step 1, 2, and 3 before that, you know, after I did my step 12. So it was very disjointed. And then she wasn't really my sponsor afterwards. So I was like stuck with no sponsor. I sponsored 2 people through Zoom because it was down to Zoom at this stage, and they were Zoom babies. And I mean, one is now celebrating, you know, her 19th or 20th month. And she is doing so well for herself. And I'm just like, that's not down to me. That's down to, you know, my higher power, which is God. It's my higher power is Jehovah, it's Jesus Christ, you know, that's my belief. And I'm not trying to push it on anybody, but that's my higher power. And hers is different, and that's okay because it's worked for her. And you know, she's come on leaps and bounds. And you know, I thought, I'm getting worse again, you know, because I hadn't got a sponsor, I hadn't got anybody to keep in check with. And I went on to a Zoom meeting, and I asked one person, I said, will you sponsor me? I want to go through the book again. I want a different experience. And she was like, well, I would, but I think this person will be better for you. And I went to this other person. She explained what she, you know, what her life had been like, what was going on for her, and all this sort of stuff, you know, everything to do with it, and how she goes through the book and everything else. And I was like, yeah, I want you to be my sponsor. And we went through the book in 2 months. I did my step 4. I did my step 5. I did my step, you know, 8, and I'm still working on my 9 because I can't make amends. I've got so many amends to do. It may be, you know, taking years, and that's okay because I am still making amends and I am actively still doing it. And, you know, once I'd been sponsored by her, I was bouncing up and down. It was like I'd come to life. I actually had a life. And on the 28th of June, 2019, I mean, I'd been sober a bit before that because I'd been sober, but I felt like I was a dry drunk, a dry drug addict for that amount of time. Because I didn't really have a sponsor for most of it. I sat on a mental health hospital wall, and because I expected the light bulb moment, the lightning strike, because the minister's son in the book got the lightning strike. Who do you think I am? You know, who do you say there is no God? And I was like, I expected that because I was a minister's daughter, you know, And it didn't happen like that. I had issues in my family, and mine was of the educational variety, and that's okay, and that's fine. And I had to keep reading the spiritual experience to understand that actually I'm not doing anything wrong. And yeah, I sat on this wall ready to self-harm, and I stopped well, not even mid doing anything. I just stopped short, and it was almost like somebody was saying to me, if you're going to self-harm, you might as well be drinking and drugging, because it's doing the same effect. Because self-harm to me was either punishing myself or it was like relief. And I explained it to somebody who didn't self-harm, and I said, it's like going underwater for as long as you can and then coming up and gasping for that air and knowing that you're alive, if you know what I mean. And that's what I thought it felt like. And I thought, so it's a mind-altering substance to me. So to me, it was a mind-altering substance to be, drinking, drugging, and self-harming. So that's why I decided, or that's when the light bulb moment went off, and I went, okay, I now understand. And I went in, and then I did go into hospital once more since then, but I went in a very different way. I went in and I put myself in there because I was struggling. I did not self-harm. I did not take an overdose. I did not do anything of my behaviors, which is so, so different for me. And I felt, that God was part of my life in a very, very different way. And it was great. And, through my whole part of being in CA, there is something that always made me think, and it was like, I can't do anything if my own house is not in order, then I can't transmit it to somebody else. So I needed to be able to get my house in order. And I'd like to read a vision for you, because to me, that is something that means everything to me. And it's like, it's my story. It's part of my story. And I'll just read it. It says, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find, and join us. We shall be with you in the spirit, fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. And it does say, and you've got to realize that it says, some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. So it means you are on the road if you are with us. And the other thing that I remember somebody saying to me, and I don't know who it was, and it was like, when they say these are the steps we took, well, actually, if you think about it, it's not took, is these are the steps we take, because we are constantly taking it, not, even after we have gone through the steps, we are still taking the steps with us, because the end is not the end. The end is actually the beginning. It's the kindergarten level, and it's the beginning of your new life. It's the beginning of something absolutely amazing, and it can really, really enhance your life and make things change. And I will leave it there. Thank you so much, Paul, for inviting me to share my story.
That was so beautiful. Thank you so much, Jo. You raised so many amazing topics there. And, I mean, I was just thinking of the wonder of it and the way that, your journey went from the circumstances early on to your progression into drinking and using, and then the situations and the problems that you experienced, and then the solution, 12-step recovery, abstinence, a program of action. And, before we go any further, I just want to let everyone know that if you'd like to reach out, me and Jo are members of a group that meets regularly on Zoom, in fact twice a day every day, called We Can Recover, 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. I'll be putting up the meetings list with some of the C.A meetings that are available shortly on the screen. Bear in mind, listeners, you can rewind and play this message as many times as you like. If you have any questions or any comments or anything to contribute to the discussion, please put it in the chat below this video, and we'll certainly respond to your questions. If you're needing help with addiction, my suggestion will be come along to some meetings, either in person or Zoom meetings. Don't ever be put off coming to a Zoom meeting. You don't need to put your camera on. Indeed, only about a fifth of the participants put their camera on anyway. So don't be put off with the idea that you'll have to put your camera on if you want to come to a Zoom meeting, nor do you even have to talk. It's entirely up to you. You can just listen. And in these meetings, you will hear stories just like the lovely story you've heard today of hope, faith and courage, and recovery in action, and a transformed life. So that's about it on those points. Oh yes, we've got lots of other podcasts. Please feel free to check those out. Indeed, if you'd like to appear on one of these podcasts, please reach out to us, and we'll arrange that. So, Jo, in terms of the transformation that's in the steps, I love what you shared about these are the steps we take, and that is the essence of it, isn't it? I mean, speaking personally, living in that place where alcohol, the last thing I got clear was alcohol, where alcohol became a daily solution, you see, and now spirituality is the daily solution, however that looks for any individual, and whilst it's clear that a relationship with the creator is the ideal thing, and my understanding, my experience, Jo, is that everyone's in relationship with the creator anyway, whether they like it or not. They just may be unaware of it. However, people of all beliefs and persuasions can get sober and stay sober in Cocaine Anonymous, and be completely welcomed and completely equal, and able to get involved and work with others and carry a message of hope, faith and courage. So anyone is welcome. So persons of all belief and no belief are welcome and can recover in C.A. But, I love what you said. These are the steps we take. And, I mean, in terms of steps 1, 2 and 3, and we've got 2 podcasts on step 1, and there's one on each of the steps 2 and 3. So check those out, folks, and get yourself a book called Alcoholics Anonymous, which we call the Big Book, and learn more about the things you've been hearing about on this podcast. But in terms of 1, 2 and 3, I look at the realities of active addiction, the consequences, the unmanageability in step 1. I accept my part, my consequences of my own making by my own wrong choices. I look at the powerlessness when I'm in that state of inebriation. And I've come to see today, Jo, that drunkenness is being high. When I took a hit on that pipe, I was in a drunken state immediately. Immediately I was drunk. Even though I'd not consumed alcohol, it was a state of drunkenness. Right, when I took a hit on that spliff, immediately I was in an altered state. I was in a drunken, a changed state of mind, and that's the essence of it, you know. And so today I see alcoholism is addiction, sobriety is recovery, and getting high or getting low. You know, things like cocaine and weed are uppers. Things like alcohol and Valium and heroin are downers, although initially alcohol gives people a high for the first hour or two, perhaps, but it is a downer. It's very closely connected with what men use to operate on people, the anesthetic given to put you under. It's very, very close chemically to alcohol. But anyway, I digress. The point I wanted to make, Joe, is, you know, step one, there's a problem. Step two, there is a solution. We can be restored to sanity. And step three, I'll give the solution a chance. I'm going to give recovery a go. I'm going to trust this process. I'm going to get into action. I'm going to continue with the rest of the steps. So I have a problem. There is a solution. I'm going to give the solution a chance. These are the steps we take every day. One, I accept I'm alcoholic. Two, recovery is the solution, sobriety. Three, I'm going to give sobriety a go today, Joe. What do you think?
I think that's great. I mean, I really agree with that, because the thing is, it's like if we don't agree with those three steps, then, I mean, that's the starting steps, that's the action, that's where we need to put the action in. And if we struggle, you know, and the thing is, we will struggle at times, but if we've got a good step one, step two, and step three, there is an answer. And then you've got your sponsor to help you understand step 1, 2, 3. You know, we are unmanageable. You know, we come into this program unmanageable, and we have to admit we've got a problem. Whereas the first time I went into that meeting in 2003, I wouldn't admit there was a problem. I was just like, I'm coming just because being told to. And then, you know, then it's like, you know, inviting God into your life and, you know, having the spiritual awakening. So, well, the spiritual awakening is further up, isn't it? But steps 1, 2, and 3 are very much God related or higher power related, whatever you feel that it is. I mean, like I told you what mine was. But you know, yeah,
what is it that, sorry, do finish what you're saying.
Carry on.
I was going to say, what is it that keeps you coming back to Cocaine Anonymous, Joe?
Because if I don't do Cocaine Anonymous, then I feel I could easily drift back to my old ways, because it's very easy to be part of the world, if you know what I mean. And I mean, you see it in the summer. There are people, you know, drinking in beer gardens. There are people on the street. You can see the drug, you know, passing over and all that sort of stuff. And it would be very easy to go back to that if I wasn't within a program. And not, you know, not taking the steps on a daily basis, and not doing my prayers and my gratitude, and, you know, my prayers at night as well. And to be honest, I do prayers whenever I need to. So it doesn't have to be morning and night. I do morning, night, and whenever I need to. And, you know, even before this podcast, I prayed because I just didn't know what was going to come out of my mouth. And I just thought, you know, God, you direct my thoughts, you direct my, you know, what I'm going to say. So if I wasn't in a program, do you know what I feel that I've had so much joy and happiness since I've been in the program than when I was stuck there on my own. I mean, because I was a drinker and a drug person in isolation. I always did it in isolation, even from the start. By the end of it, I was turning my lights off, because I was scared there was somebody on, knocking on my door. So it got me down to the paranoia. But it's like, yeah, I need a program to keep coming back, to be able to keep me in check and to be able to help others, because helping others is part of my step 12. Not everybody may be a sponsor, but if I sponsor people, I am being like a vessel for God to work through me to be able to help another addict who is as hopeless as I was.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that organically brings me to the next point. Well, that's what all men really are vessels. We're to serve God, and realize that it's all by grace, isn't it? Our next breath is by grace. And I think it's a great privilege to help others. And I'm very interested, George, in the early days of Alcoholics Anonymous, back in the 30s, before the big book was published, which is available, everyone, for £14 off eBay and Amazon. And I believe you can get it for £10 for another website, alcoholics-anonymous.org.uk.
You get it for £8
plus postage. And so I mean, I think it's around just over £10 with postage. But anyway, look, let me finish what I'm saying. It's quite all right. Back in the late 30s, before the big book was published, what they had was grace and wisdom and prayer, and they were men and women of persistent prayer. They continued in prayer, and they helped others. And I love one of the things you often say, Joe, a closed-mouthed friend. Because as you and I know, the word sponsor doesn't appear anywhere in the big book.
No.
And I have to say, personally, I'm not a fan of the word, because if we're not careful, it can infer a hierarchy that simply does not exist in AA or CA or NA, or ought not to exist. But you and I know there are persons that somehow seem to exalt themselves above others, well, I'm this and that. And well, it's a privilege to work with others. It's a blessing and a privilege. And, I really like that expression, because ultimately it's a two-way street as well. The encouragement, and staying in the solution. If you're working with others, it's not always easy. You get all kinds of characters. It's not always easy. It can be quite challenging, but it's such a wonderful thing to try and carry a message. And then the other thing I want to touch on is a support network. Which the suggestion I make is try and get half a dozen folk, preferably the same gender, and to encourage and support and be there for you. It doesn't mean you need to tell them your address or your surname or anything too personal, but just persons that have stayed sober and clean, that you've got some kind of connection with, and maintain the support group. It's very important. People change fellowships. People pick up drink and drugs again. You may not click with everybody. People get new relationships, new jobs. So maintain a half a dozen folk that you stay in touch with at least once a week. Make sure you talk with a couple of persons in recovery every day. Maintain connection, not just by these text messages. I'm really not a fan of text messages. Ring them up, have proper conversations about sobriety, about the principles, about living clean and sober. What do you think, Joe?
Oh, I agree with that totally. I mean, yesterday I went out for coffee with two others from my group, because we decided that, I mean, one person has a bit of agoraphobia, so we're trying to encourage her to come out a bit more of a bit more out of her shell. And she was the one that said, how about going for coffee? And I was like, that'd be really good. And me and this other girl said, yeah, let's go for coffee, let's go and have a drink. And we met together, and it was great fellowship, that we had. And we actually bumped into somebody else from the fellowship, as we were sat there, so I phone somebody at least once a day, or two or three. And then because I mean, my sponsor's in Canada, so if I need help, I have to do it to her time zone. So if I have somebody here who I can then rely on, or not necessarily, it's not relying on, but able to talk to, then I'm getting support in different ways, because my sponsor's brilliant, but the time zone bit can do a problem sometimes, because I can't talk to her at, at 10 o'clock in the morning, because she's 5 hours behind me. And, with respect, unless something major was happening, I wouldn't phone her for things like that. So I phone another friend or another friend. I've got enough people within my, group to be able to talk to, and also on Zoom, to be able to talk to and say, look, I have this resentment, or I feel like I'm struggling, and they can then give me some sort of advice, or, and I am a closed mouth friend, because I do not want to talk other people's business. And when I talk to my sponsees, I say to them, the only person that may know anything, and I will tell you first, is I will talk to my sponsee if I don't know something that you're asking me. But I don't go blabbing what you tell me, and that's the difference. So, I just feel that I can talk, they can talk to me in confidence, and I can talk to them in confidence. I have some closed mouth friends myself, and I trust them with my life, really. And it's taken years to build that up, though, because I was a very insular person, but I'm now starting to come out of my shell, which is great.
That's so beautiful. So, we're coming towards the last few minutes, Jo. What would you say to anyone that's just tuned into this broadcast and is still struggling with drug addiction?
If you're struggling with drug addiction, get on a Zoom meeting. I mean, We Can Recover is a very good one to go on, because they do different they do like the book studies, and they do Ask It Basket, and you don't have to talk, and you can wait till the lounge and then speak up, or or put something in the chat and just say, I'm struggling, and somebody will be able to talk to you. If you're struggling, don't struggle alone. That's the difference. There are plenty of people that will be there for you if you are struggling. And as long as you speak it out, then we can help. If you keep it closed and inside, then we don't know what you're thinking or what you're feeling. And I just want you to know that there is life after drugs and drink, and it is a jolly one, and it is fun. So if you're struggling, We Can Recover is a great one to go for. I only say that because I know that one very well. I can't really comment on the others because I don't know them as well. But it's on twice a day, 7 days a week, on at 2 o'clock and at 8 o'clock. So you can go on at those two times, and you will see similar people on there at times, and you can then build up your network. And I think that's a really good thing to do. So I think, yeah, that's what I'd say to somebody who's really still suffering.
Beautiful. And you mentioned meetings there, and I put the screen up, and there are hundreds and hundreds of CA meetings every single week. And so as you said, We Can Recover is on at 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. every day. Daily Reprieve is on at 9. These are all UK times, 9:30 every day. At the top right there, Daily Reprieve. That's a friend of mine that helps out with that meeting. That's a very good meeting, I can say. And then every night is Reaching Out at 11. That's also at the top right. And then every night at midnight is Tazana, which is an area in America, by the way. So there is, there's 5 meetings that are on every single day, and they're decent, they're good meetings, they're solid meetings, So please reach out in the chat, and check out the other podcasts, and get yourself some literature, and someone to guide you through these beauteous 12 steps of recovery. Well, that's going to do it for today, family. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Joe, once again, always a pleasure. I love listening to you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, until next time, family. Much love. Stay strong. Thanks, Joe.
Bye.